Have you looked at the gas pump recently? Some states are seeing prices upwards of $8 per gallon. What about your utility bills? Have you looked at those recently? For the last 2 months, my electric bill was over $900 per month. Now, I have a big house and I use a lot of electricity, but even accounting for that, these were abnormally high. The fact is, energy prices around the world are rising. This is strange because this goes against the long-term trend of human history, where energy prices typically decline over long periods of time. Basically, energy is supposed to get cheaper, but right now it is not. The reason why is because something changed in the 70s, and I'm gonna show you the real reason why energy is getting so expensive right now. And in the second half of this video, we are going to go over an incredible opportunity from today's sponsor, ATHA Energy. So make sure you stick around for that. Energy consumption has followed a very predictable pattern for hundreds of years, as demonstrated by the Henry Adams curve. But you can see right around the 70s, actual energy use departed from the historical trend and started moving sideways. And over the last couple of decades, we've heard increasing stories from the media and from politicians saying that renewable energy will at some point replace and produce all of our electricity needs. They show charts like this that show how over time our use of oil has gone down, coal has gone down, and gas has gone down. Renewables such as solar, wind, hydropower are starting to take their place. But what people never show you is that this chart is relative. When we change this chart to show the absolute levels of energy consumption by source, we see that every source of energy actually has increased in its consumption. We never stopped using coal. In fact, we've increased our coal usage. It's just that we've also increased our oil usage. We've also increased our gas usage. Now, throughout long-term history, here's kind of a very short summary of how our energy needs have evolved. First, for all of our energy needs, we just burned wood, just fire. That was it. And that's still the position that many people around the world are in. If you want heat, if you want to be able to cook your food, you've got to burn wood. This source of energy is very dirty. It contributes to massive health problems, burns down forests, and it is not very energy dense. The next big leap forward in energy was coal, much more energy dense. It allowed people to stop having to cut down forests to get wood and enabled inventions like the steam engine and the Industrial Revolution to happen. The next step after that was oil, which apart from just being a great and dense energy source, it was also the foundation for all products that are made as a petroleum byproduct like plastics, and we literally would not have any of our modern technology or buildings or capabilities without it. And the next big step after that was supposed to be nuclear. We were promised energy too cheap to meter, an energy source that was so energy dense that if you fill up a mug this size with uranium, it could produce more electricity than you today will use in your entire life. And just like coal cannibalized wood and oil cannibalized coal, nuclear should have cannibalized oil. But big oil led a massive fear campaign and pushed and got a bunch of legislation passed to make nuclear extremely difficult, close to impossible to produce more of. But people are slowly realizing the truth, and here are a couple fast facts about nuclear that I encourage you to fact check me on and go see if these are true for yourself. Number one, nuclear has zero emissions. Doesn't produce any carbon dioxide or any other greenhouse gases. Number two, land-wise, it is the smallest footprint for energy production. Each nuclear power plant requires roughly 1 square mile. You don't need the thousands to millions of square miles that you would need for wind farms and solar. Very, very, very small ecological footprint. Number three, nuclear currently produces 10% of all electricity generated, even though there are only a few hundred nuclear power plants. And they're all built in the 50s and the 60s. Imagine what we could do today. Number four, it's actually very safe and is proven to be so. The United States Navy has over 6,000 reactor years completely accident-free. Simply put, Americans know how to do nuclear energy safely. And that's proven by the fact that there are less total deaths from all nuclear energy ever combined than people who die from just simple things like installing wind and solar panels every single year. And number 6, it is the only source of energy production that completely sequesters all of its waste. There is no gas emitted into the atmosphere. There are no toxic chemicals that leach their way into landfills. People are waking up to these facts both on the left and the right. And this has changed just within the last couple of years, as now half of Democrats and 67% of Republicans now are in favor of more nuclear power plants. But the fact is that energy is a global market. And so when bad policy somewhere or one source of energy gets really expensive, that impacts all energy everywhere. It's like a tide lifting all boats. Consider Germany as an example. Germany used to have abundant energy. They used to have extremely cheap coal. They had cheap natural gas from the Nord Stream pipeline from Russia, and they had abundant, very safe, very clean, world-class nuclear. But Germany pushed the EU to regulate coal, and so now Germany has coal in its ground that's very expensive. As a result of Russia invading Ukraine, Germany decided to stop accepting natural gas through the Nord Stream pipeline, and right when they were about to give in, the United States blew it up. So now they have no more cheap natural gas from Russia. And nuclear was their last hope, but they're decommissioning nuclear as well, which means now they have only expensive and unreliable energy. And now, as a result of supply cuts and the current administration draining the strategic petroleum reserves, we have subsidized, unreliable green energy contributing to higher and higher energy prices for everybody everywhere. Nations are waking up and realizing nuclear is the only path forward, the only source of energy that has what it takes to provide the energy we need in the future. The only energy source that is emission-free, has the potential to produce all of the energy that we need, and is reliable. Money is starting to flow in as well, with the US Department of Energy releasing a $6 billion civil nuclear credits program. But there is a problem with this, because nuclear requires uranium, and where does most uranium come from? Russia and Kazakhstan. The West is in desperate need of domestic uranium production, especially because the government is currently trying to ban uranium imports from Russia. This has sent the price of uranium skyrocketing from $24 a pound just a couple of years ago up to over $72 per pound today. This has also sent uranium stocks flying higher, and this is not something that can only be seen in hindsight. This is something that I've been talking about for months now. Back in July, I posted about uranium breaking out of its multi-year-long consolidation. And when you see a breakout like this, it is very bullish. 1 month later, I posted about uranium again, how it had successfully broken out and begun a new bull market. This bled over to uranium miners as well, as indicated by the Sprott Uranium Miners ETF. Another month later, I posted about it again, and you can see the bull market continued to rally like crazy, with the Sprott Uranium Miners ETF reaching extremely overextended levels. As a result, I said that I would expect to see a temporary pullback. And you can see from that point, that's exactly what we got, with a sharp pullback and the relative strength index coming back into healthy levels. And this is where today's sponsor comes in, ATHA Energy Corp. You see, most uranium mines break even at somewhere around $70 per pound, which uranium has been below for quite some time. This has contributed to a gap in the supply versus demand. Essentially, the world is using more uranium than was being produced. Currently, there's about 200 million pounds of consumption in uranium every year, where only 130 million pounds are being produced. And the two largest producers of uranium are sold out until 2027. This is why even people like Elon Musk are bullish on nuclear, saying things like the world should increase the use of nuclear power. He also said that Europe should restart dormant nuclear power stations and increase power output of existing ones. He correctly clarified that there is no radiation risk, and that nuclear is vastly better for global warming than burning hydrocarbons for energy. And while most people think that Elon Musk is insane and on the outskirts of things, it's not just him, it's mainstream large companies as well making a move, with Microsoft currently hiring nuclear energy experts to help power its AI and cloud data centers. The future energy needs are so extreme that there is no source of energy production that can come close to supplying what we need other than nuclear, which is why Bill Gates is also the chairman of the board of a company called TerraPower, which is a nuclear innovation company. Because of the artificial cost imposed on nuclear energy through regulation, many companies are trying to pioneer small modular reactors, and it's very likely that these will end up being the future of energy. But you still need the fuel. Another company pushing forward with this is Oklo, pioneering work with small modular reactors. And one of the key figures behind Oklo is Sam Altman, the OpenAI and the WorldCoin guy. You see all these big figures that are typically behind pulling the strings with political puppets, big money. There's a shift happening. Everybody's going nuclear and they're all going to need fuel for it. That is why the current demand is so much larger than the current supply, especially considering geopolitical uncertainty, with the West wondering where they are going to get it. Luckily, we know that the Athabasca Basin, which is a region in Canada, has basically the most uranium there is. It has the largest and highest grade uranium deposits in the world. And this is why ATHA Energy, the company that we're reviewing here, has such an incredible opportunity ahead of it. It's because of where it owns land. This is a map of the Athabasca Basin, and every single part that is in green is owned by ATHA Energy Corp. To put this into perspective, ATHA Energy has 3.4 million acres of land in the Athabasca Basin. Compared to its peers, nobody else even comes close. They also have way more cash than all their peers at 33 million Canadian. So you might be wondering why their valuation is so much lower than their peers, considering they have way more cash and own way more land, the most land. It's because they have not begun drilling yet. They haven't drilled a single hole. So there is no proven uranium that is being priced into the valuation of this company yet, which makes them the cheapest per acre compared to all uranium companies. But take a look at this map and all the properties that their acreage is right next to. Considering the Athabasca Basin is like Saudi Arabia for oil, that's what the Athabasca Basin is for uranium. The odds that they have something on land that they own should be pretty high. Now, this land package was put together by the two guys that started this company, and it's taken them over 10 years to put it together, and they know what they're doing. This is the chart of a company that is worth $3.7 billion, and they got their land from the guys that started ATHA. As a result, ATHA holds upside in some of this land owned by the company NextGen. And it's the same story with another company called ISO Energy. So just ATHA's exposure to these two other large companies is somewhat of a call option. And that's completely ignoring the fact that they own more land in the Athabasca region than any other uranium company. And to top it all off, the CEO is this guy, Troy. His last role, he was Vice President of Operations and Project Development for NextGen. And he was the one who led the team through the development of Arrow Deposit, which is the largest high-grade uranium development project in the world. And before that, he was the chief geologist at Eagle Point. Eagle Point was a mine that was about to shut down. He came in and he was able to increase production 2 to 3-fold. He's a world-class uranium geologist. Considering the fact that they have, by a huge margin, way more land in the Athabasca Basin than any other company, and the largest cash position for their drilling budget, it may seem odd that their valuation is so low compared to their peers. It reminds me of the story in The Richest Man in Babylon. If you've never read that book, it's a classic. Go read it right now. But there's a story in there where it's nighttime and somebody has a herd of sheep that they need to sell very quickly. So they stumble upon this guy and they say, hey, I need to get rid of my sheep, but it's nighttime, so the guy can't count the sheep. He can kind of hear how many are making noises, but he can't tell for sure how many sheep are there. But the guy's under pressure and he needs to sell, and so he's selling this flock at a very good price. But the guy gets cold feet because he doesn't know for sure that all those sheep are there, that for sure it's a good deal. So he waits and thinks about it, and finally morning rolls around. Now it's light out. Everybody can see how many sheep are actually there, so the seller is able to sell the flock for full market price. And that's a perfect example of what is going on here with this company. The risk that there's nothing there in all of those millions of acres of land is what has this valuation so low right now. But historically speaking, where the highest grade mines of uranium are in the world are all in this region, and the fact that they own way more land here than any other company would suggest that they do have the odds on their side. This is not investment advice, nor is it a trade recommendation. As always, do your own research and manage your risk. As always, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day.